Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Behave, where we're lucky enough to have with us in the studio the Prime Minister, Theresa May. Hello, Prime Minister. Thanks for speaking to us, because you're a very hard lady to get hold of. I'm trying to avoid any press because I keep having to eat my words. It's not good for the waistline. So you don't think the election is going all that well? It is going very well, actually, for Jeremy Corbyn and Labour. He's come out strongly. People warm to his stability, his honesty and his obvious compassion, and frankly, he's better at maths. Indeed, you've taken a bit of a battering over school breakfast. Yes, dementia tax, fox hunting, Brexit. Come on. Your husband's involvement in equity release. Below the belt. The NHS. Education, public debt, and this. Isn't that a bit sexist? No, not at all. You know, I believe that there are boy jobs and girl jobs. It's a boy job to put your hand on a girl's bottom and a girl's job to accept that. So I'm female in the way that I've had Donald Trump's hand on my bottom. But like Margaret Thatcher, maybe continue to thank her, I am hard on the inside. In saying that, aren't you just admitting that you're inflexible and won't listen? No, that's not true at all. It was Joseph Goebbels, I think, who said that the English follow the principle that when one lies, it should be a big lie and one should stick to it. They keep up their lies, even at the risk of looking ridiculous. Well, I've taken that on board. That's listening, isn't it? And I've been putting it into practice too, and telling some absolute whoppers. Well, it's a fair point, but it's just leading to the accusation that you're basically weak and wobbly, that you're flip-flopping and making it all up as you go along. It takes a strong and stable person to change their mind as often as I do. On Brexit, I was committed to remaining. Now I'm the hardest Brexiteer you'll find. I said the police cuts weren't going to lead to a military presence on our streets, and now just look outside the window. I convinced you there wouldn't be a snap election, and ta-da! If you look at our policies, they are consistent. It's just the unimportant details. Unimportant details? In what way are they unimportant? I said we were going to focus on those who are just about managing, and I have been identifying who they are so we can round them up and push them off a cliff. It's not as if everyone wasn't aware we were going to do that. Well, that's true. Is that why you're removing benefits from disabled people and taking their motability cars away? Yes, that's right, but they'll still have free bus passes. But even that's quite cunning, because if they can walk the length of a bus, they shouldn't be getting personal independent payment in the first place, and they will grass themselves up. It's clever, isn't it? By taking advantage of a benefit, you will prove you never needed it in the first place. You've also lost quite a lot of ground recently due to what people are calling the dementia tax. People need to wake up and smell the coffee. Look, we've been very clear that someone has to take on the challenge of financing social care. We've been clear nobody will have to pay for their own care while they're alive. But when people can't remember they own a house, why shouldn't we have it? So you're basically saying that they can pay for it once they're dead. Well, if they don't know they own a house when they're alive, being dead isn't going to help, is it? And what about surviving while they're still living in the house? Because you've just announced that you're going to means test the winter fuel subsidy, haven't you? Look, if you can't survive a British winter without a winter fuel payment, you aren't strong or stable, and frankly, you won't be missed. We think this will be popular with our young people because, let's face it, teenagers aren't often all that keen on visiting grandma, so it's a win-win. You're assuming support from young people, but you've also just taken away all the housing benefit for under 21s. Yes, so they need grandma's money. That adds to the win-win. But how can they get the money? Because if their relative had dementia, they'll have to pay for their care after they've died. What advice would you give to worried relatives of older people? Pray they get cancer instead, for now. Well, yes, let's talk about the NHS. Oh, for goodness sake, that old chestnut? It should be really clear by now that we are not in favour of the socialist model of something for nothing. It's time to grow up and leave the past behind. Our motto is spend it before Richard Branson gets hold of it. Let's look to the future then and tackle your savage cuts to education and that infamous 7p breakfast. Of course, it won't be anything like 7p. You'll hear Jeremy Corbyn extolling our youth as the future. It takes Conservatives to face up to the hard facts. Right now, children aren't productive. They don't work. They don't pay taxes, so they're of no use to us. So you say it won't be 7p. So how much are you going to spend on each child's breakfast? We're not cold-hearted. We recognise that British children have to be fed in the mornings if they're going to spout the party line, so we will give them cereal, but no milk. Margaret Thatcher, may we continue to thank her, got rid of that. So it'll be 3 Cocoa Pops each or 1 Weetabix per class. Or I'm being told not to say class, but to use data. OK, well, between 60 pupils then. Cuts. You know, we've got to fund free schools and grammar schools somehow. We've had a lot of tweets and emails saying that a lot of school children are quite upset about how you're planning to go back on the ivory ban. Surely that's unnecessary and cruel. Well, with all due respect, it's easy to say that when your piano hasn't lost its middle C. Right. Well, you can't make piano keys out of foxes, so why also repeal the ban on hunting? This is an issue that the country feels very strongly about. That's just hypocrisy. People forget that beagles have rights too, and that matters. No, look, really, it's quite simple. We added the bit about repealing the fox hunting bill to deflect attention from our other policies and to make sure all our friends know that we will buy them off as they have us. And now we need to throw the Tory faithful another bone. Another change to our manifesto, which I'd like to introduce, if I may, with this short ad. And I'm here to tell you that it plays very well to a certain section of the electorate. It's not quite finished yet, but you can see where we're going with this. It cuts down on class sizes, the expense of breakfast, and deals with overpopulation, because as Nigel Farage himself said, we are at breaking point. So is this your plan on tackling Corbyn's popularity, despite the obvious media bias in this election? Look, of course we don't report on Jeremy Corbyn's true success. The thousands of people that come out to hear him up and down the country every single day of this campaign. And we don't have to, because of all the journalists who don't want to say that because they earn more than £80,000 a year and will fall into the new higher tax bracket if Jeremy's elected. Like a lot of other people in London, they don't want you to know they earn that much, and like all good Tories, they don't want him to take it. You must know by now that we gave all your money to the bankers to reward them for the crash, and now we have to keep kicking you because that's what a scapegoat is. OK, well, speaking of media bias, could you talk about HSBC? The fact that Rona Fairhead was moved from HSBC to head up the BBC, which some people say points to the Tories creating financial oligarchies under a banner of media objectivity. Well, no. Obviously, if it's one thing under a banner of something else, it's supposed to remain covert, and I'd be unable to comment. Plus, I'm not here just as an individual. I am representing and therefore answerable to some people who might get really angry with me, so no, I can't say anything about that. Okay, well, let's move on then. Why are you doing arms deals with Saudi Arabia? I thought I'd just answered that. So if you're not doing well and losing points hand over fist, why on earth did you call this snap election? Because it's how things are going to be from now on. So anything you say could basically change just on a whim. Yes, I'm even planning a name change. Oh, for the party? No, for myself, after my landslide. With army on the streets, more money funnelled from the populace to my rich friends, wages not keeping pace with inflation, the UK becoming a tax haven off the shores of the EU, and my intention of chucking human rights in the bin, I'd like to be called Mrs. Mugabe. I feel it's more fitting, don't you? Prime Minister, Thank you very much.
Be high.